Welcome to the American Vision. This is your host, Bill Muckler, and your program today is brought to you by the TLBTV network, sponsored by and promoted by the Liberty Beacon Project. Today, I'm really excited to have an awesome guest with an awesome message, and that's Joseph Montgomery, representing Brilliance Nutrition. And Joseph, welcome to the show.
Very, very nice to be here today.
Joseph is in Southern California, and I guess I might tell people that I'm broadcasting from my at-home studio in Cocoa, Florida, which is on America's Space Coast. And Joseph is in Southern California, so we're on opposite sides of the country and on opposite oceans. But tell us exactly where you're from, or where you're recording from, Joseph, and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so we are here in what we would call sunny Southern California for anybody who's heading towards their fall and winter season in their nice cold states up north. We are just about an hour north of San Diego and an hour east of LA. So we're right smack in the middle of a quaint little town called Temecula, and that Temecula town's just known, or recently known, for our balloon and wine festivals. We have a lot of grow facilities here in terms of vintners and orchards and avocados and a lot of good agriculture. And it's a great just place that I feel is still connected to the ground and planting and cycles. And again, it's amazing that we get to be so close to so much great depth and culture and health and wellness, but we're really trying to bring something different here to the valley and get it to where we can actually strengthen people. So that's kind of our big point that we're making here today. And I really can't wait to get into some better details.
Okay, thank you so much. And for some of our viewers who have never seen this show before, the American Vision, I'm a Mizzou graduate, and a Christian, a great-grandfather, I guess a Marine officer, an entrepreneur, a work process management consultant. And so I've had a pretty long background, and I always tell everybody, I've done all the jobs that Americans won't do. And Joseph, what are some of the things that you've done leading up to this?
Well, I have just a very colorful and very unique story that's kind of brought me to the place where I'm at today. And I was born in California, but I didn't stay here very long. Being a son of a single mother, we moved around quite dramatically over the course of the first 4 or 5 years of life, and lived everywhere from California to Nevada and Utah and Ohio, and spent a lot of time though in the West Virginia, Ohio Valley, and really gained some good roots in a culture that was, again, very agrarian, very rooted in the idea of taking care of yourself and trying to get people to understand that you can do a lot with just a little bit in this country, the way that we're afforded a lot of freedoms and a lot of capabilities to keep pursuing whatever it is we might dream to pursue. I went into a very beautiful professional career path where I tried to develop myself in both the biotech industry, data systems management, and of course my passion and love, geology. And it was unique because these three areas gave me a lot of diverse schooling and a lot of great material. I returned to California and went to the University of California, Riverside. And through the programs and the opportunities that I had there, I had kind of the best of three different worlds. I had engineering be a very huge front runner, computer engineering and computer systems development, and also just happened to be a lot of biotech and a lot of medical operations and understanding the human body in terms of biology. So it really gave me a foundation that I don't think a lot of people, when they have a career path, they go to school, they get one set of schooling opportunities, they only learn their one industry, they go into that industry, they work it for 15, 20, 30 years if they're lucky, and then they retire and they move on with life. So seeing things from so many different perspectives, I got to really clue myself in on the state of the country in terms of health and wellness, where our research dollars are kind of being spent in terms of pharmaceuticals and biotechnology, and understanding how to interlink and sort of connect people through education practices and personal development. And that's been a really big piece of my last couple of years. So fresh out of college, I started doing hard rock mineral mining and started looking for gold and diamonds and things that were helping the industries that were out there that were trying to develop areas from Canada to Mexico. And all the while getting very tired of just the travel and things that were kind of moving me around too much, settled down here in Temecula into this valley and started a geotechnical engineering firm, and really started trying to build up during the boom from 2005 to 2008 at the crash. That development brought me to a place where I had a lot of free time. From 2008 to 2012, our country was in a terrible, terrible position. And there was a lot of time to really learn how to spend more hours in passion because the workload was so low. And I started to develop a love for health and wellness and for trying to get people to learn a little bit more about the history of our country and really bring a tremendous volume of data down to a point where I could make very succinct statements and get people to learn very unique and very personal ways of self-care instead of always running to an urgent care, an emergency room, to a family physician or general practitioner and asking them for their opinion and kind of believing that that was the only option. And it really pushed me forward as to where we are now with a wellness center here in Southern California that's actually focused on self-instruction. It's focused on getting people to learn their own human body very, very efficiently and trying to promote that you can care for you every single day. And what we really look at that as is like a self-investment program. You put a little bit of money in the bank every time you get paid through your whole working life. And then you wait till those days that come around the corner where you go, hey, I can go and use that money to not have to work so hard anymore. And in that self-investment strategy, it really promoted the way that I like health and wellness is an everyday battle. It's you get the body that you actually invest into. The results of how you feel is what you did the last 24 to 72 hours. If you ate poorly, then your body's going to feel terrible. If you ate well and you've done those simple things like exercise and drink water, then it really does help your system heal and regenerate and do everything that it's supposed to do for you.
Yeah. Okay. That really impressive. And Joseph and I first got to know each other earlier this summer, and we ended up, I guess one thing that I said that I thought that it got us to where we realized that we were so like-minded was, I said in industry, I've done a lot of work in large corporations and large plants where we have a lot of maintenance work that needs to be done. And one of the practices that we implement is preventive maintenance. And we take care of this equipment, the pumps, the turbines, everything you can think of. You take care of it and prevent it, but our own bodies, we don't take care of. And we don't do preventive maintenance on ourselves. Yeah. And so what happens is in a let's say I'm working in a power plant and one of the pumps goes down and we have an emergency and we get out the emergency crew. Well, that's exactly what we do in our real life with ourselves is we don't take care of ourselves. We don't do any preventive medicine. And then when something goes wrong, we call 911 and we have the ambulance come up and pick us up. And you mentioned something about urgent care, and that's what we do. So what's happening today is our healthcare costs are going, skyrocketing.
Yes.
And it's only because we don't take care of ourselves to begin with. And so that's why I was so impressed with what Joseph's talking about is he's talking about how can we take care of ourselves so we don't have these skyrocketing health costs and medical costs that, we all know what's happening in America today. We're all talking about the high cost of health care, but really what we're talking about is the high cost of insurance. The politicians don't even talk about health care.
Yep. Well, there's very little. I love when we see things like Obamacare come out, and we know that in that first draft that we saw absolutely not the word of doctor, and an understanding that the doctor-patient focus was nowhere in that 1,000-page document that people went through, and all they did to go and allow that to be where it's at today, and it shows the sad state of affairs we're in, is they changed the word Medical Care Act to Medical Care Tax. And as soon as the word tax was put on it, the legislation could do whatever they wanted to do, and there's nothing anyone could do to get in their way. There wasn't any patient advocacy groups. There wasn't any doctor advocacy groups that could actually benefit a system that, like you're saying, the rising costs, we are at a zone of $6 trillion in terms of money being spent. And yes, a huge sector of our entire economy is now in emergency medicine and very radical healthcare. And really, it's not healthcare. They care for people in a way that's actually sick management. And the idea is you take a person who gets sick and you manage them through another few months to years worth of life, and we call that a good job. And what I've so struggled with is really changing that personality, that mentality of, I was speaking with some people last night. They just believe that at 40, your body's supposed to get tired. It's supposed to start breaking down. It's supposed to start showing age. And at 40, they already expect themselves to need knee replacements and hip replacements and have bulging discs and have a bad gut and have their skin falling apart and hair and nails that can't grow. And they actually, in this country, I believe, are kind of programmed to see that, even by the characters that we have on daily television, who we see them and they age well. We talk in a way that I think almost proves we show how much we venerate those people who look ageless. And it's like, wow, Cher is 60, 70, 80 years old this year, celebrating these birthdays. And look, she doesn't look a day over 26 when she was with Sonny. And now, so here, look how amazing she is. Here, buy this product. It's going to help cover things up and make you look the same way. And instead of really going back to and again, I call it provincial, but I mean, it's very simple how we used to care for ourselves 100 years ago, before we had a education system that reinforced a doctoring system that only certain people were able to take care of themselves and other individuals. And now we are struggling through this idea that people get a headache, people get a stomach ache, and when it used to be grandmother's solution or a little tea, a little tiny herbal bit of medicine that would actually make you feel better, we go on to lifetime medicines that actually cost thousands of dollars, and we won't even give a bit of credence to the idea that peppermint tea or chamomile tea or something so simple has a function. It's, here, take this antacid, take this anti-allergenic pill, take this antidepressant, we're so we have never stopped to ask ourselves, how do we start living pro things, for health? How do we live for good gut health? How do we build up our pro systems that our body is designed? We're meant to regenerate for 100 years plus. And we see that in other cultures. We examine this in other countries, and we find that cultures that live very simply with low stress, with good water, they eat well and very simple meals. They're not using processed materials. They don't have low calorie this and fake sugar that. It actually promotes their life, and they live 100 great years with a fantastic mind and a great body. And yes, they have to do things maybe a little differently, but they're not struggling so terribly every single day. One of the biggest and scariest stats that I think that I've come across in all of my research is that without the modern American medical system, the average individual would not live past the age of 47. And what that statistic comes back into is that at 47, that's the average age that a medical event occurs where if there wasn't intrusion from the medical system, you would not have survived. So that's a heart attack, that's a stroke, that could technically be a car accident or some sort of major trauma, but the number of people who are in this age category, we're past the boomer culture now. We are letting our population get a little more aged, and we're not producing as many children, truthfully, in our numbers now. Had it not been for the big influx of immigrants in the last 10 years, our American population would have actually turned backwards, and we would have lost individuals in our country for the first time in 100 years. So we are struggling in ways that our average family size 100 years ago was 12 individuals. A mother would birth anywhere between 12 to sometimes 20 babies and still be healthy in that process, not sick the whole time. Where today I deal a lot with infertility, and I deal a lot with people who are struggling to have babies, and it's a sign of a healthy body for a female to be able to carry children. And that sign is telling us that we're not healthy anymore. We can barely see with medical intervention sometimes 1 to 2 children if a female is lucky. And that's another big indicator that there's something a little bit more amiss here, and it's causing the whole system to shut down. So like you use that analogy, not just one pump, not just one single system starting to kind of fail that you can fix or duct tape it and cause a good solution to happen real quick, but now we're getting an entire system. We're getting the reproductive system or the digestive system to fail. So one whole branch of that factory has now had to be shut down because everything's not working in that area, and we need to start taking care of those things.
Yeah. This really hit home to me because we had never talked about this before, but my mother is from a small town in southern Illinois called Carlisle, and she had 10 brothers and no sisters. And
Wow.
my grandmother lived to be a pretty old age. I don't remember exactly what her age was. My grandfather lived to be 95, and
Wow.
I'm sorry, 99.
No.
And so I used to spend time over there, and see, I'm going back to like the 1940s, and
Yep.
During World War II, I used to spend time over there in the summer times, and I helped my grandfather, and they grew all their food. He
Yep.
had a huge lot, and he was retired by then, and grew all of his food. During that time, I also had a victory garden where I grew food in my backyard because the government said we had to have victory gardens.
That's right.
I'm always a person who was used to eating fruits and vegetables. And there was this old adage, which people, I guess, might make fun of today, was an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And, and I thought, I wonder if there's anything behind that. And lately, with the land of Google, I find out that the apple peel has what is it called, pectin,
Pectin.
and that's a very important ingredient for our health.
Yep.
So in my life, I'm 82, and I tried to exercise all my life. Of course, I got a lot of that from being in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
And I've always tried to drink water. I've stayed away from sodas and soft drinks, especially diet drinks.
Diet.
And I mean, that's what locks in the fat, right? the ingredients in there in the diet drinks. So anyway, I'm really interested in what you're talking about here, because this is the direction this country needs to go in, and I'm hoping that the people who are watching will say, hey, maybe I need to change my life over and change my lifestyle and start thinking more of drinking more water, getting better rest, getting more exercise, and eating more fruits and vegetables and natural foods like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come into an interesting place though, and that's where that adage back in your time and when that became a very popular concept, doctoring was actually still very distrusted. And you can see that by what you're hearing when you say an apple a day should keep the doctor away. Now we have a mentality of bring an apple to your doctor so he can stay alive long enough to take care of you. And this is a relationship that I think has really been lost on our population, is that that apple in let's just put it, say 1950, when we have some good statistics, when we started taking a look at food and food science and nutrition science, the 1950 apple was actually very powerful. And the average person would have to eat somewhere between 30 and 60 apples that you would buy today in order to get to the same powerful potential of that one apple. You'd have to eat 7 pounds of broccoli to get to the same level of a standard 1/2 cup serving size of the power of broccoli before the 1960s. So we've had a lot of changes that have occurred to the scenery, let's just call it the environment. And that's everything from the introductions of things called GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, inside our dietary structure. And we've actually had, of course, during that time, the first invention of the most amazing chemical on planet Earth, DDT, gave us a relationship for adding aerial spray to our foods. And within 20 years, it had killed so many animals, and I believe started a lot of our uptick for different types of autoimmunity viruses, different types of gut and skin health issues that weren't previously seen except for rare medical occasions. And we kind of became numb to the idea that we just get sick as a population because we're so busy, we're so pressed for time. We don't take an opportunity to really rest and recuperate. And it's just amazing to me that when people go into that mentality, they used to do in the 70s information broadcasts like Schoolhouse Rock, and it would say, get your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables to stay healthy and free of these bugs. And it was, you're fighting the germ gang, and you were doing your job by actually eating good quality food, and that's how you stayed healthy. Now we have this mentality of, if you don't go to this well check, if you don't go every year to get an exam and get your blood tested and have all of these expenses, then how are you ever going to keep yourself healthy? And what I love is to take what I call an inverse observation curve. And that is, if you take what's happening and you imagine all of the variables of what's happening go away, and then what would be the likely outcome from everything that's currently happening leaving. And I actually see, when I do that equation, all of our health and wellness being improved, because we're having so many compounds that are suppressing our health, what I call anti-nutrients, that are actually making it hard to be able to eat and consume and have our fruits and vegetables, our baseline of our dietary structure, really promote good health. I mean, we have this now molecule with the genetically modified organisms called glyphosate, or what we should be calling Roundup. It's technically concentrated liquid animal pest, poison. And now we've permitted scientists to be able to put that into the tissues of our tomatoes, our corn, our wheats, our various different vegetables, as well as put it on top of it in the traditional spraying process. But we've done a very interesting disservice, because our body has to eat foods, but now our immune system is recognizing that there's something in that food that's technically poison. And here we have an entire classification of autoimmune disease, rheumatoid issues, problems with our gut system, our skin system, that's actually a whole big classification of medicine that wasn't around in the 50, 60 years that we've advanced these issues, these problems. And because of that concern, our body actually starts to distrust what we're doing to it. It starts to work against us. And in my relationship that I've discovered for talking to individuals and getting people to work on their own system, there's a tremendous level of detoxification and working material out of the body just to get back to a technical clean bill of health, a clean slate. So you can see the power of regeneration and cellular nutrition start to work for you. So many people, their big struggle is that they believe that most of their problems are caused by diet and lack of exercise, that they need the right diet and they need the right amount of exercise, and that's how we fix our problems. But in that inverse observation curve, that's how we took care of ourselves 50 years ago. A little bit of diet, a little bit of exercise when things were changing, and it did a pretty good job for balancing how our bodies felt, our health level. We are in such a unique condition, a unique crisis right now, that we have to take so many more steps, so many more drastic options just to get back to basics, just to get back to a rudimentary function in our human bodies. And that's where the Wellness Center and the education platform and everything that we do focuses on learning very simple things and taking that attitude that we had post World War II of do it all yourself and be self-sufficient and self-reliant, and trying to get people to take that power back. And I don't care if you grow one set of snap peas or one tomato plant. If you do anything for yourself, you are helping the system at large be healthier. You're actually taking some of the control back to your own home and realizing you don't have to sell it all and go move to the badlands of South Dakota and the middle of nowhere to be a pioneer and live. I think it'd be healthier than staying in LA or New York. But it's one of those where a lot of people, they go onto those extremes. They think it has to be one side of the case or the other. And I'm really staying even here in this country to try to prove that you can learn to do a few good things each year, benefit your body by taking on some personal responsibility. If you were thinking that yogurt is a hard thing to make, that your own foods, your own bone broths are hard to make, it's too difficult. It's got all these things called cooking involved into it. It doesn't just pop in the microwave and get fixed for you in 3 seconds. If you're going to have that attitude, then the idea is you're going to suffer in a lot of different ways. And I'm really trying to get people to see how a little bit of effort each day, a little bit of, like you're saying, preventative maintenance, you can discover so much more about how you were designed and how your body is there for you to take care of you for years.
Joseph, at this time, I want to get back to something you said, but I want to have I guess it would be a shameless commercial for my book.
Of course.
I'm the author of 2020, A Clear Vision for America. And in the book, I wrote about the 20 most serious issues that the federal government has imposed on us. And one of my chapters is on healthcare. And in my healthcare chapter, I wrote about we have to start looking at GMOs, genetically, GMOs. Okay. And gluten, and we have to start thinking gluten-free. I myself can tell you that just a few years ago, I've lost more than 20 pounds, and I've done it by just cutting back on a lot of the gluten type products. So I'm looking at things that are more gluten-free. I'm looking at, I'm trying to stay away from the GMOs. And I was just wondering, you said something about the apple that my grandfather grew on his apple tree back in the 1940s was so much more powerful in nutritional value than the apples we buy in the store today. Now, one of the things about the apples we buy in the store today, they last forever. So they must put something on them. They coat them with something that keeps them from rotting. And so what I was hoping you could do for us now is give us some practical tips on some things that we could do in our everyday lives. And maybe we could get people to kind of cut down on some of the excess weight that we have, because that's certainly not a healthy lifestyle either.
Right. Well, and I love what you're saying here, because the idea is our effort that we had to put in to maintain our body prior to the Korean War, we had enough health that we were able to fight 2 world wars successfully. We were able to go into Korea and beat an impossible enemy back. And in Vietnam, we started to see something change. We started to see our heart and our resolve and our home and everything here in our country really change over. And I think on the dailies, it's been so unique to me that a person, they imagine it's going to be so difficult, that it's going to be really hard, because they've heard of such stories from their mothers or from their colleagues at work, or they hear of the extremes, and they imagine that's how it's going to be for themselves. And I think that's one of the most important relationships that we work on at the Wellness Center, is reconnecting the human mind and perseverance and patience, and allowing for us to see that there's a process going on, that there's organizations. People, your body is organized into diurnal cycles, and those cycles, they repeat over and over again. When you're trying to change the cycle, change the pattern, like you said, for a few years now, you've been cutting away from certain foods and taking away a certain amount of gluten and getting it to where you're really being more conscientious. You've come back to connect with yourself, and you're focused on your mission and your goal, and you've got purpose in your life behind what you're doing with yourself now. And those types of things, they really get the mind of the person focused and in the game and fighting the way that like I say, I always love Rocky 3, because Rocky 3, I think, has a lot to do with the way that I kind of take on the world here. But you're fighting an impossible opponent, and that is this big system, this big organized system. I can't change what's in a grocery store tomorrow. I can't stop a doctor from prescribing pills for their clients, their patients. But I can get a person to make some daily adjustments. So here's what I would say is like a very general and easy connecting set of practices. Every single person out there waking up tomorrow morning can do these 5 things without any extra equipment or material. And I think this is going to help a lot. So I always like for people to know that if you wake up in the morning and you are not feeling well, things are not going well for you that morning, that day, the most important thing you can do and understand the way, and we call it the universal solvent, but a large glass, 20 ounces of water in your body in the first few moments of the morning. It is so important for turning on the thyroid, the stomach, getting the kidneys and the colon to finally start working more effectively. And there's just something to understand about the programming of 75% of your body with water. If it's sludge today and you wake up and drink a little bit of water tomorrow, you're going to have a different concentration of all the toxins, all the compounds in that sludge come the next day. Repeat that process over, and I don't care if it's even just for 30 days that a person starts drinking 60 plus ounces of water. And I know that this is tough because I deal with this one issue in the first 3 months of my program with people so often. And they tell me how much they hate the taste or lack of taste, how much they can't stand that it gives them a headache, that it makes their stomach hurt. They would rather have a little bit of tea in with their water. They'd rather have some just, can I take my soda, or can I drink my water after my milk or after this? Or no, we really have to know that our body is telling us something whenever we hurt, whenever it's built up with a lot of materials. Water's the only thing that actually helps us pull material in and helps us pull material out. So when we're struggling in our health, and that 20 ounces, when you first wake up, what it really, I think, even does for the person is is it sends a signal of, hey, I'm here for you. I'm gonna take a step out onto a ledge, and I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna drink some water, and we're gonna see how we feel as we go back to reconnecting with our own body. I'm not gonna wake up and feel tired and go straight to coffee or straight to an energy drink. And it's really not even that all those things are that bad. It's that when you're already struggling so much with hydration and your cells have become acidic, then it's really difficult to get back to a place where you can have good health forming up on your body. So after you've got that water in there and it's actually moving around and doing some things, and I've got a huge volume of information online about water and water practices. I really don't recommend anything other than spring water or a very, if it's been recently tested, a non-contaminated well water source, because of the mineral balance that's in it. A lot of people are drinking distilled water, RO water, bottled, that's been filtered waters. They're drinking out of their fridge or a Brita filter or something like this, and they think that they're doing something beneficial for themselves. Our bodies, again, need to bring in minerals with our water. And if we're not bringing in minerals with those 60 plus ounces of water per day, we're going to always be deficient in very basic minerals like magnesium and calcium. And even, like I say, I love the whole understanding here, but the average bottle of mountain spring water has about 100 to 200 dissolved solid particulates in it. And that's a level to where we have a little bit of taste to it, but it's also purifying our kidneys. It's helping balance our blood and keeping our nervous system functional. And without it, we end up into a lot of pain. So I love that whole relationship there of getting people to do that glass of water. The next thing that I find is kind of unique: really check in with your body as to if you're hungry, or if you're just tired, or if you're just bored or in pain. And again, a lot of people eat right when they first wake up because they think that's what we're supposed to do. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And yet they never ask their system, they don't ask their body, hey, do you feel like you can deal with one big, plate of potatoes and hash browns and bacon and eggs right now? Or do you kind of feel a little overworked and a little overtired? Maybe we need to wait on this a little bit. A lot of people are struggling. And again, it's tough to give blanket statements because different medical conditions require food to come in, hypoglycemia and hypertension and these other issues to balance the body. But really taking a check in with yourself. And if you are going to feel hungry, start with a very small amount of food. Start with something more like a broth or a very easy pudding of like chia seed, or something that's very simple for the body to digest, because your body, when you wake up in the morning, typically is still digesting the food you ate at dinner last night. So you're adding on top of whatever you did to yourself in the evening hours. If you ate that dinner and set it on the countertop on a plate and came down and understood that it's still sitting in the digestive system, not processed out, and now you're adding another big breakfast on top of it. So many people, again, I love this country for some of the things it's shown me about this whole process with health. We are a country that's eating 3+ meals a day and technically starving from malnutrition. And that's a problem. That's a really, because it's a psychological problem on top of it being an actual physical problem. We keep eating, and yet we're not getting anything in our system to actually help us heal our bodies and try to find the best health. So if you're taking into account, like I say, that you're getting those materials, the only reason why a body would be hungry first thing in the morning usually is salt. That's about the only reason that we would actually be hungry. And we can fix that salt issue by just putting a 1/4 teaspoon, a very small amount of high quality crystal salt in that water that we woke up and drank, and just giving ourselves more minerals. And so many people would start to find out that their feeling of hunger first thing in the morning, it actually eliminates it really quickly, that our body goes, oh, so we have the minerals covered right now? Okay, then I guess we're all right. I don't need to eat this breakfast cereal or go out to a fast food restaurant really quickly and grab something. I can just get on with my day and start processing things through. So water with a little bit of salt, we kind of take care of two main issues inside our body, hydration and minerals. And those things really promote the rest of our systems activating and working and starting to function so much more effectively. And then I think it's unique because I'm just talking to a general section of the population. Most of us are radically inflamed, and our biggest issue that we're dealing with in our country is that we have such high inflammation levels. Mm-hmm. We're not even really dealing so much with malnutrition, say like Africa, Southeast Asia, and those areas where they're struggling still to find food. We're dealing with too much food, and the too much food is actually causing a lot of irritation in our cells, because one of the phrases that I love that I've come up with is that all food is technically toxic to a cell. Good food is just a little less bothersome, and it comes with material that actually helps clean the cell back out once you tell it that it has to deal with food. But all food, technically, if you put any of the greatest, health items that you can imagine out there in a petri dish with kidney cells, with liver cells, with gut cells, digestive cells, it's technically toxic unless it can flush it away, unless it can move it out. And that's a huge inflammatory factor for most people's bodies. We've got conditions where people are swelling, getting edema in their legs to the point to where they can't walk anymore. And their whole fat system, the lymphatic area or lipiderma, is a very interesting issue where our skin and our fat layer actually separates from itself, and now you've got a big pocket of material that's actually irritating the inside of your body. So everyone needs to find or know about some type of non-pharmaceutical, non-over-the-counter anti-inflammatory that they can start taking on a routine basis. This can be ginger, this can be turmeric, this can be cinnamon. There's a lot of herbs out there that are naturally anti-inflammatory, but this could even be something sweet like pomegranate juice. It can be something that your body is really enjoying. We work really heavily with CBD compounds from the cannabis plant here because of our state laws. We work with a lot of turmeric. We work with compounds like MSM or methylsulfonylmethane. MSM is a really amazing anti-inflammatory for the joints and for the skin and the digestive tract. And as long as you're finding a anti-inflammatory into your diet routinely, that stops the need for pain pills and for Advil, which shuts down your liver and your stomach, and Tylenol, which actually thins your blood and makes you prone to stroke and heart attack. There's these issues that we keep bringing into our body as solutions, and yet it's actually causing more damage, more harm in the long run. So if we can reconnect ourselves with something that we know works as an anti-inflammatory on a daily basis, then that's going to really help the entire human system feel so much better and work really effectively. It's not going to happen overnight. People love to take something once and say, nope, I still had a headache. I still had a backache. That must not be the thing, because we've gotten used to the idea that we take, an Oxycontin or a Vicodin or some type of really intense synthetic substance that actually changes the whole system of the human body. The only reason you feel it in 15 minutes or whatever the commercial tells you is because you actually are changing every system of the human body. Vicodin and Oxycontin and all these pain pills, they just shut off the nerve. They don't take away the reason why that actual nerve was hurting in the first place, which is typically an inflammation issue. So a lot of people reconnecting with themselves in that way. And this can be something as simple as juice. A lot of people get into juicing whenever they first want to be healthy. A lot of people get into different types of pill products, vitamin materials. They really like to take a multivitamin, thinking that, hey, as long as I've got my multivitamin, then everything must be all right. And this was a leftover from the 70s when we were doing the space race. We were telling our population that eventually we're not going to have to eat big meals anymore. We're going to figure out what all of the right little things are that's inside food. We're going to put it into one capsule, and that one capsule is going to make it to where no one has to eat food anymore. It's going to revolutionize the world. Well, we've done that for the last 50 years, and we have less health today having done that than what we see in other countries, what we see in places that don't have this multivitamin mentality, where everything gets ripped out of the food. We have found that God really did something unique when he put things together into packages. And the reason why an apple's an apple and broccoli is broccoli is because those two things exist very differently, and they both have benefits. And when you bring them into the body in a whole form, it's all the other things that work outside of just the one active ingredient or compound that scientists have said, oh, this is the most important thing. You know, they go and they look at that apple, and like you're saying, they find pectin is very amazing. But take the pectin out, and without the vitamin C, without the vitamin E and A, without the other fibers that are inside that apple, the apple's kind of useless in terms of just that one piece of the peel. It's got different antioxidants and resveratrols and different compounds that are making it function in a way that we don't even have the beginnings to understand what it is to recreate this whole process. Carl Sagan, I think he gave us one of the greatest metaphors for this, and his beautiful way of starting his show when he was on TV was, if you'd like to make an apple pie from scratch, the first thing you have to do is make a new universe, because everything in this world seems to be interconnected into how it helps our bodies heal. And with our science, we've really pulled ourselves out of this interconnected world, and we've made ourselves think that we can do it all on our own. And that's a huge, huge issue. So I know, like I say, this is one of those where I try to get people to know that one single simple change repeated over and over again produces great success. And that's where these items, you know, moving through and kind of getting your day to work for you in a much better way. The next thing that I think is so important for people to understand, and it's because everyone who comes through my wellness center, every single person who I talk to, every event I've ever had for the last 10 years, the one thing I tell people, if you can't find magnesium back into your life, and that's through the skin, as we have found, is a much better process, but a lot of people still can get some benefits from taking very specific tablets or powders or compounds into their body for magnesium. 380 metabolic interactions occur in our body with magnesium. And when we don't have magnesium, it begins a triage system. It sets us up for this idea of, I can't take away the inflammation in your back. I'm so scared that your brain's going to stop functioning and you're going to have a seizure by not having enough magnesium. So forget the back muscles and the pain that you actually feel, no matter how intense that is. I've got to keep the brain alive. I've got to keep the heart alive. This increase that we've had for heart disease, and again, it barely ekes out as the #1 killer in our country right now, just over top of doctors and improper pharmaceutical medicine procedures in terms of killing people. Heart disease is a lack of magnesium, and people's hearts, these muscles moving all the time, require magnesium. So we used to have a lifestyle where we were touching the ocean on a routine basis, and we were actually getting magnesium through our feet and through our skin all day long. That salty seawater, it's that way because it has a very high amount of magnesium in it. And when we lose connection with this, and that old concept of actually having those fruits and vegetables be our best source of minerals, that's not there anymore. We've come to a place today where our magnesium, we are at such a critical need for that 96% of the American population is in a critical deficiency mode. That means their muscles are hurting. They can't extend their tendons very effectively. Their brain is starting to have multiple headaching, migraine issues, and the entire body is really trying to adjust in a low magnesium body. So really gets back to this process. And like I say, we love to do topical. We like to give people some bath water, use some Dead Sea salts from Israel, get some type of magnesium, because you get the most out of it for laying into a tub, because it helps the last thing that I think so many people really need, and that is just to give yourself a break. Find some time. Put it on the calendar if you're that type of person. You're so type A that you won't rest, you won't breathe without it being on the calendar. Fine, put it on the calendar. Give yourself one day, even per month, to just relax everything away. Forget all the stressors. I know most people need more than that, but if it starts to become a routine practice, 15 minutes in the morning given to yourself each day makes a dramatic difference in that month. If you give yourself one day each month, it makes a dramatic difference in that year at how you feel and how your body operates. So resting, again, helps the system start to actually do the repairs. We have this 1,000 million mile long honey-do list that our body's been saying to itself, hey, when you get a moment, can you please go in and take care of this other thing? So you think of how we deal with those, those processes. We know we have so many things that our body's telling us that we need to get done. We never take a break to actually let it happen. And that's a lot of times because we believe that a few more minutes focused on our job, a few more minutes even focused on something that's fun, but still taxing, still an activity, that if we haven't effectively rested, if we haven't found ourselves the ability to really shut down. I know, again, I take example, but my friends in Germany, their average is anywhere between 2 to 6 months for vacation per year. It's built into their lifestyle. They always have time off planned. It's there for them. It's how you live well. You end up seeing most people pop out of college at 25. They don't take a break until they're 55, and they wonder why they're dead at 65. And that's our system right now in this country. So we really are trying to get people to know that resting really helps. So if you're waking up, taking a little bit of water in first thing in the morning, a little bit of salt, allowing your body to have those good minerals, checking in with yourself to see how you're feeling in terms of your hunger, getting some magnesium, especially at night in a bath where you're relaxing a little bit more effectively before sleep, and finally taking a little bit of rest is something that anybody can do, because none of this requires a tremendous amount of money. None of this requires even a tremendous amount of time. But being consistent, finding your new routine, finding a new pattern, allowing you to become the most important person in your world for a period of time, you can start to see some pretty amazing things change about how your system's operating.
Joseph, this has just been fascinating, and I hope that everybody that watches this can benefit from this, because it's really up to us. We have to start doing things for ourselves. The federal government is not going to take care of us, and they're not going to take care of our health. And their federal government is operated by a lot of people who get a lot of donations from a lot of big corporations who don't really care about our health. They care more about what they can sell to us and get us to use. And you're talking about resting and a break, and unfortunately, I think we're just about out of time. So anyway, this has just been fascinating, and I want to thank you so much. You've been an awesome guest, and this has really been an informative show for me, and I think for everybody that watched. So till next time, the next time we're on will be a week from now, and I want to thank all of you for watching and tuning in. Thank you very much, and goodbye until next week.